I went away and then came back again, and I was a mess. I mean, really and truly a mess. And one of my best friends decided that she might have a drinking problem. So she wanted to go to Al-Anon, and she wanted me to go with her. And I did. And I thought, oh my God, these are totally my people.
Hello and welcome to Soberness. I'm Cat Greenleaf. I am so happy to introduce my next guest to you, Philip Galanes of the New York Times. He is a lawyer by training, a writer by talent, and thankfully for me, his largest fan. He writes the social cues column in the New York Times style section. So this is where people write in looking for guidance on sticky social situations, and he gives it. And not only does he give guidance, it's the way he gives it that captured me almost 2 decades ago. And now I'm a religious reader. I mean, honestly, this to me is a true rock star moment. Thank you, Philip, for coming on Soberness.
You're really nice, and I'm a big fan of yours too.
Oh, you say that to
For
all the
years and
podcasters.
years, for no, for years and years and years and years. I am so happy to be here, and after that introduction, I'm never leaving. We're gonna have to keep talking for like several days.
Well, amazing. And I bet you actually, of all people, have so much material because people write to you about various different situations, but in total, it shows you what people are worried about. And to me, what's going on in a country is best evidenced by what people are worried about. So I feel like you have your finger on the pulse of the nation in a more intimate and very different way than other people. True or false?
Well, can I tell you something? I don't know that I would have said it like that, but I actually think you are right. In a really informal way, I get hundreds of emails every week from people about issues that they think they can't handle themselves, or they want someone to judge. They want a judge to hear their case. And I'm free, and they publish the email address in the Times, so people write. But as a result of that, I felt like I knew in the last 3 elections clearly who was going to win. I just knew it because I could hear what was coming into me. And I also know, I don't want this to sound, bitchy, but I also know that we're all walking around with burdens, and people can't see our burdens. They don't appreciate them fully. But a lot of the burdens that people are feeling, they are really selfish burdens.
Ooh,
They are me first burdens. So
do
normally
tell.
10 years ago, I would have said people walk around with burdens, and the most important thing we can do is respect that and know that when someone's really been awful to us, we don't, it's might not even be about us, might not be about you. Maybe she was just having a really rough thing, and I gave people a lot of grace and space and credit. Now I see, a few years later, that that's still true, and I'm still really try to be really empathetic with the people who are writing to me, because they're writing to me. I mean, they could be writing to any number of people, and they're writing to me, so I want to take it seriously. But I also see that people are really obsessed with how unfairly they're being treated in the world compared to everyone else. And I mean, these are, for the most part, white, well educated people who are subscribing to the New York Times. Life is treating them just
Just
fine. But let's, but if they unburdened their hearts to you, they would say, never has anyone been shafted like this in the history of the world. So I
Amazing.
I do feel like there's that moment we're in right now, and you can feel it. You can feel
Yeah,
how, like, the wildfires these were the DEI wildfires. This is because women caused these fires because they don't know how to be firemen, and we made them
that's
firemen.
right.
And black people were crashing all the planes because we didn't teach them to fly planes. But there's an obsession. The first question that I ever got about alcohol that came into I started thinking back when you invited me to come and talk to you. The first questions were weirdly about people who you go to dinner with, and they might
Mm.
have two drinks and you only had one. And that's really a big problem for some people who are
Oof.
like, the world is really finite. And if you get a quarter and I don't, that's unfair. And so that was the first that was when I started seeing we're in a different kind of world now. We're in a world where people's reality is formed by the their social media accounts, what their friends are posting, what their lives look like compared to what the real housewives lives look like, and the celebrity instas and Gwyneth's insta and Goop. And if it's
Mm,
not
mm.
like that, it's we're not as much. So if the world's different than back when I was a kid, back when I started thinking about, like, I've been reading advice columns since I was like a tiny child. I loved them. This would always have been my dream job, but the world is different because we've gotten to a different place with each other. We've gotten to be a
It,
little less.
is it because the ease of use of this world, meaning everything is available to us every second, generally, and we have come to expect it. We are entitled. Um, and for the most part, our lives have been peaceful. This country has been peaceful. Our position in the world was secure as the best. So, what else do you have to worry about than whether or not your friend had an extra drink and made you pay for half? Um, there hasn't been a lot of strife for, as you said, white people of a certain socioeconomic level. Not a lot of strife. Of course, everybody has internal strife and personal strife and lots of trauma and all the things. But overall, we have dishwashers and washing machines and
Yeah.
Roombas, and our whole life is taken care of for us. You think you need something, and it can show up at your door in 10 minutes. So there's not a lot to push back against in the workings of our lives. So you do start to focus on silly things, I guess, huh?
You get to focus on silly things, and then every once in a while, an email will come into my box, and it's like, oh, wow, here's somebody who's really, really hurting. And for some weird reason, and I think this is also because of the way the world has become, young people on phones 24/7, obsessed with their phones. My nephews will be in the same room texting to each other rather than speaking or looking at each other. Because of that weird rabbit hole, there are people who don't have anyone to talk to. I mean, I can remember when I was, you know, 16 to say 30, I can remember getting on the phone with people and staying on the phone for like an hour and a half.
Yep.
And the lights would be out, it was dark. They were the most intimate conversations you could imagine because there was
Yep.
no other stimulus. It was just that. And so every once in a while, I'll get a letter now and I'll think, wow, they really don't have anyone else now. to talk to. Um,
Do you ever write to people outside of the column, like if
oh,
it doesn't fit, but
I
you
write
need
back a
to reply?
lot. It's
You do.
strange. I mean, because um, I mean, it's not my job to, and the Times probably wouldn't like me to, but I
Mm.
do. Sometimes I'm really concerned.
Yeah.
Um, and I want them to know that I'm answering their question in the paper, but these are some additional thoughts. And if they're not feeling squared away, come back to me. Because, at this point, like, I'm an old dude and things have worked out. I
Yeah.
thought I'd end up eating cat food in the street, and it turns
No.
out I'm not.
You
So
thought that?
I oh all through my 20s and 30s,
¿Por qué? Why?
I thought, um, I think because I never thought I was good enough. I never thought I was good enough, and I thought they're gonna see eventually. Um, wh-
And we all
when
think
I
that way.
first came to New York, I was, like I graduated from college, and 2 days later, I moved to New York and I came
Yeah.
here. And then 2 days after that, my dad killed himself. And I went away and then came back again, and I was a mess. I mean, really and truly a mess. And one of my best friends at that time decided that she might have a drinking problem. And the way she got to that was by saying, she projected it onto her mother. Her mother had a drinking problem. She didn't have the drinking problem. So she wanted to go to Al-Anon, and she wanted me to go with her. And I did. And I thought, oh my God, these are totally my people. These are people who think they have to take care of other people, manage other people's problems, put
Yep.
other people's stuff ahead of myself. And my friend was totally unmoved. She was like, "Ugh, these people, they were so annoying." And I was like, I went back. This is my social cue to you, Kat.
Oh,
I went back to that meeting for, I bet, 6 months. And every Friday night, it was in a church in the West Village. And afterwards, I made friends with a couple of the people in the group. And we would go to this macrobiotic restaurant that was on Commerce Street. And was that wrong? Because I knew I didn't have a problem. Nobody in my life had a problem with drinking, but these people who had a person in their life, they were just like the people in my life, except my people had guns
yeah.
and they hurt themselves. They were not drinking. And it made me realize, wow, we are really all just dealing with bushel baskets of shit as well
Yep.
as we can. We're doing the
Yep.
best we can. But
Yes.
I kept going, and I was really straight with the people that I had dinner with, and I never shared or anything like that. But going there was so profoundly moving to me because I saw I'm just like this.
Yeah.
It was really the first time in my life I ever found a group of people, and I thought, these people are just like me. And it
Yeah.
felt so good, and yet it's not a group for me.
I disagree because you also don't know what you're providing for them. So I had a very similar thing, actually. One not so long ago, I was training in restorative justice. And I'm kind of an airhead, and I didn't really realize till halfway through that it was for people who had um, survived abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse. And that's not my story. and I was really in deep with these folks, and I had to come clean. Every last person said to stay because of what value I was bringing, whatever that was. And we really helped each other out. So if
Yeah.
you're getting something out of it, that has made their stories that much more important. And I believe that those rooms, any recovery rooms you go to, people want to see people get better.
Oh, it blew. I mean, the best thing about getting invited to the show so far was when I responded right away and I said, well, I'm not sober. I'm like an ally to a million sober friends, and I want to do anything I can to help people. But as soon as I said that, I started thinking about those Al-Anon meetings on Friday night in the late 80s and
Wow.
the two or three people that I still like think of with nothing but love because they only wanted good things for me and I only wanted good things for them. And if they called me up right now and said, this is what I need, I'd be, yep, I'll do it. What else do you need?
I
You
have
know?
chills. I mean, that is what it's about. And like you said, we're all just trying to get through, man. However and wherever, and you are a service provider in just how you are in the world. So I am sure those people think of you just as warmly. And
Yeah,
did you feel better after your tenure there?
I certainly did. And I also started seeing, I started seeing the things that were holding me back,
Mm.
thinking that I could make you
Mm.
happier
Yeah.
by doing something. I thought I could manipulate everything. I thought
Dude,
I
same.
was like the biggest puppet master on earth
Right.
and I could
Right.
make you happy. But no, only you can make you happy. I can be a I can be a supporter of yours and your cheerleader. I can help you out when you need it. I can listen. I can listen. That's maybe the most important thing anyone can do is just listen.
Yep.
And that's what happens in those rooms. People actually get listened to. And
Yes.
um, I feel like I started realizing, oh, I better go someplace where I can really start cementing the ways that I'm holding myself back. Because I was not advancing myself in the world by thinking that I was so powerful that if it
Yeah.
was raining outside, it was because I had done something wrong the day before that made it punish everyone with rain.
Oh, we are from the same planet, my friend, the exact same
Yeah.
planet. So, what did you do to get over that?
So I went, I found this shrink who was, I don't want to say he was the shrink of like every gay man in New York, because there are lots of gay men in New York. But I'd say he had like a solid 65% of us.
He knew all the stories. He knew who was
He
doing
knew
who and who was cheating on who.
everything. And
That couch could talk.
it took a really long time. I worked with him for a really long time, and he and I started writing. He's the one who started me off writing. He said, I want you to start. I would come in and I would have these really elaborate scenes that I would want to tell him about that had happened or that I'd seen happening. And he'd say, this is interesting, but it's not about you. I'd rather talk about you. Why don't you write these
Mm.
scenes down and we can talk about them if you want? We can do, but let's stop your deflecting and let's start getting to you. So I started writing these things, these little scenes that I saw on the street. And I saw a mother dropping off a little, I can remember so well. On 13th Street, there used to be this daycare. And I think going to like nursery school and kindergarten and having to leave my mother was so awful for, I mean, I can't tell you, I wept and wept and
Devastating.
wept. I
I remember.
never wanted to leave her. And I saw a little boy that this was happening to. And so I started writing about this kid, and these scenes became a novel. And it started a whole other path for me on the one hand, but it also made me see that I couldn't conflate all the paths. When I went to the shrink to talk about why I couldn't get my shit together, why I couldn't find a job that was meaningful, why I couldn't stick with relationships for very long, other than friends who I could stick with forever. But as soon as you threw sex into it, I couldn't do it.
Wait,
He
why?
and I worked and worked and worked and worked. And he helped me put things into buckets. This is what you can control. This is what you can't control. And this is what's just going to come down to old fashioned luck. And so I'm at this dinner party and I'm sitting next to this woman who's extremely lovely. Her name's Judy. And I probably I'm not a drinker much, and I probably had 2 glasses of wine. So for me,
Tanked.
total. I'm like chatty Kathy. And I tell her, I say, what do you do? And she tells me that she's an editor. And I say, oh, drunk as a skunk, I've got a
Yeah.
novel. And she said, send me the first 50 pages. And I thought, wow. I said, no, I couldn't do that. She said, that's my job. My job is finding novels. Send me the first 50 pages. So I sent her the first 50 pages and she really, really liked them. And cut to the novel comes out and the head of the styles section reads it, Mary, and Mary calls me in and says, I need you to start writing an advice column. Isn't that
And
the
did she know
weirdest
that that had
thing?
been your lifelong thing?
Yeah. I used to, when I was a little kid, we used to get, did you get the paper delivered to your house in the morning?
Of
Some people
course.
got morning
Slammed on the door.
delivery, some people got afternoon. We got morning. And I used to run out and we got Dear Abby, not Ann Landers. Some papers got Dear Abby, we had Dear Abby. And I used to read the questions at the breakfast table to my father and my mother and my 2 brothers, younger brothers. And then I would ask them what they thought and not really listening because really all that was I was waiting for like a respectable period of time so I could read what Abby told us was the correct answer. And I started doing that when I was probably 8 or 9 years old. And
What turned you on about it?
I think the idea that somebody cared. I saw this really sweet, like you might call it saccharine, sweet documentary about Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers. I wept and I thought, this is so creepy because it's so oversweet. I needed him to have like a character flaw or something, but he didn't.
didn't.
And he kept saying that what he would tell kids who were in any kind of difficulty, he'd say, look for the carers. There's always a carer. Look for the teacher who's looking around the lunchroom, making to see that everyone's got food. Look for the bus driver who's, you know, making sure you're sitting down before she closes the door and drives on. Those are the people. And I thought of Dear Abby like that. I thought that she really cared enough to tell these. I didn't get that it was a job and that, a thing. I just thought she cared. And I really liked it. And it's also a really good job for somebody who's bossy. And I'm very bossy. So I love telling
Perfect
people
job.
what to do. It's like, yeah, it works.
Made for you. Did Mary know that you had that obsession with the advice
None.
columns?
She didn't.
Come on.
And when she called me up first, she really wanted to know if I could do a different kind of column. You know, those people who write about every week, they write a little thing about, so we went to the fancy new Italian restaurant, blah, blah, blah. I thought that is so boring. I don't want to do that. I want to be Dear Abby. And she said, I'll check with my, they were
Right.
like, that is such a tacky idea. No. And they said, you just come up with the things you're going to write about. Come up with like 20. I went to the flea market. I went to a couture show. I went to a this. I went to a that.
Right.
And I was grudgingly writing the list down, but it was also a gig and I really was looking forward to it. And then out of the blue, she called me up and said, I was thinking about your idea. She said, what if we made your advice column, what if we made your advice columnist voice a little mean? And I thought, oh, that's interesting. Well,
Yeah.
I am a gay white man. I can be as
Yeah.
mean as you want me to be.
Bring
And
it.
so we tried that and it was really successful right away. But then something around, we started in 2008. And then sometime at the end of the Obama administration, when things started getting really mean, when, people started getting really mean to each other, I thought, I don't want to shit on people there's enough of that. I want to be nicer. And it's, I think well, too, because you've been talking to people for almost as long as I've been talking to people.
Yeah.
So, unless you change something, it gets too samey. So I had to change the way I was talking to people. And weirdly, it let me keep talking to them longer. And it refreshed things. It's like
Hmm.
like, I didn't have to be the witty one. I could be the
Right.
one who was really listening and feeling really sorry.
I think just being listened to, just having someone bear witness to your pain, real or perceived, is so valuable. And then again, as a big fan who reads every word, I'm always amazed by how much you know to bring to it. People have an issue. Well, is it okay if I put my trash out, even though blah, blah, blah? You come back with well, legally, you can't do X, Y, and Z, but then morally, there's this. And I would just be careful of that. I'm like, God, does he know everything? Because,
Yeah.
if you
And
know
that's all.
everything, you're literally never getting rid of me. I assume you research some stuff, or do you just have encyclopedic knowledge
No,
of
I
the
have to
world?
research like crazy. And when people
Okay.
write, I mean, it's very interesting when people write in and you think, well, I don't know, what the hell is the answer to this? One of the ways that sobriety comes into the column a lot. And I wanted to ask you about this too, because one of the things that happens when people write their letters is that they want somebody to judge a situation, but we're all human. And I certainly did this when I would go to my mother and father with a complaint about my brothers. You stack the deck. You tell the
Of course.
story as
Yes.
appealingly to you and your situation as you can.
Of
And one
course.
of the shortcuts, like one of the shorthands for he's a bad person or she's a bad person, is they have a drinking problem that they won't admit. Immediately, substance use is like a shorthand for they're a bad person. Do I really
Yep.
need to say more to you than they
Correct.
drink a lot? And
Yes.
I I I I get that. I get this question. I get this component in questions so frequently. And I took it on, like, I don't know, it must have been a year ago. Maybe it was a year ago. And I said, you're in no position to say whether this person has a drinking problem or not. You don't
Mm.
know. Only she knows if she has a drinking problem. And people, the letters that were so angry, we know when the people in our lives have drinking problems. We can tell. We know. And it was coming from a place of where a real place, it seems to me, that I get a lot in my letters, where I'm a good guy and there are lots of bad guys. The bad guys are the the people who get into, you know, NYU, but they didn't really deserve it. They got in
Right.
because they
Your father has
were
money.
a minority. Or
Yeah.
the bad guys are the ones who have 3 drinks and they only pay for one. Or that's a real shorthand for things.
Yeah.
And I don't know why that would be, but it makes me curious if you've noticed that.
People love to judge addicts. Um, Addicts do a pretty good job of it ourselves. Thank you.
Well,
We don't
that's
need
the
any help.
thing that I
Um,
mean, the thing that that I would say I've noticed so much in my friendships with people in recovery is how easily, and I share this quality, how easily I'm less than, and how easily I'm a person who doesn't really deserve anything good.
that's right.
And so if something good doesn't happen, well, yep, that's exactly the way it's supposed to have worked.
Right.
And so when see that in a letter that comes in, she's like really a bad person. I mean, do I need to say more than she's an alcoholic and she won't admit it? She won't
Right.
admit she's an alcoholic. So she's
Right.
that bad. And it makes me think, well, she doesn't want to be with you because you're shaming her every minute. Like, why would she want to be friends with you? You're not loving her.
Right.
Yeah. It's
Right.
a
And
very
again,
interesting thing. Such a big problem because it's not like there isn't a real problem that has to be solved. But when you think of all the overlays on the problem, oh my God, very
you,
hard.
it is very hard. And there are many layers that you have to peel off to get to healing. One does. I am doing now. I mean, I haven't drank in 11 years, but the aftershocks are formidable. And actually, it's only through doing this show and having really good conversations with others in recovery who are much farther down the road than I am, or differently down the road that I am, that I've been able to bring some compassion to myself and understand
What a great
the
thing.
things that led to this. You know, what you said earlier about thinking you control everything in the world, and if it rains, it's your fault. My new friend, you have no idea how convinced I have been for all these years that it is all my fault. This drinking problem is my fault. Now, it gets dicey because the only way to get yourself out of active alcoholism is deciding to stop and then putting in all those supports that you need to stop. So there is this kernel of truth of, you don't choose to get alcoholism, you don't choose to have it, but the only way to not have it is to choose
Is
to
to
not
choose
drink.
to not have it.
So it's
That's a really subtle, interesting idea.
it's not easy. And so many bad things generally have to happen before you decide to stop picking up a drink. Now, in my case, I didn't stop till I was 42. So, you know how much guilt and shame you can amass in 30 years of drinking? A whole lot. And it takes a long, long time to get out of that. And like I said,
Yeah.
it's just now starting to happen for me. And thank God, because the guilt and shame is stifling. And,
Yeah.
something actually I read about you, and you're writing about your dad and how much shame you felt around his suicide. And it's understandable shame, but obviously unwarranted. It's the same thing about having shame around being an alcoholic. It's unwarranted because it's a disease, but it's understandable because
Yeah.
you've caused a lot of chaos. So in your job with social cues and just in your life, you've been on this planet a long time now. Um, how have you learned to reconcile shame and to handle it?
Well, one thing I'll say is that I can see it a lot faster than I used to be able to. Because you what I don't know if you know this, but when you were talking about shame, you started making a spiral. And that's exactly what happens. We
Yeah.
spiral, and you're
Yeah.
deeper into it and further away from fresh air and reality and all that stuff.
Yes,
But
reality. Right.
one of the things that I would say I can do now, and I mean, my dad died, took his life maybe is 35 years ago. So I've
Wow.
been at this a very, very long time with a lot of
Yeah.
different shrinks and a lot of different ways and a lot of different trying to get above, trying to get above water is
Yeah.
I can see things going wrong faster now. I can see
Yeah.
when a person is not a good fit for me
Mm.
because they'll try to they try to push they try to push buttons or manipulate me or try to make me feel bad in order to do something for them, or when I'm start judging myself really unfairly for something, I'm a lot faster to recognize it and go, this is probably a really great person, but she's not for me. And so to distance myself with kindness from people
Mm.
who aren't going to help me walk lightly through the world.
Yeah.
And when I see projects, whether it's a writing project or a TV project or some kind of project, when the dynamic starts to feel like this isn't a situation that's going to make me feel better about myself, I can see that right away. And there's no reason to do it because uh, the impulse is still there. If there's someone to blame, I'm never found any like I'll be to blame. I mean,
Yeah.
no one. I'll take the blame immediately, but I'm faster to realize, maybe I should pull back a little bit. Maybe I should take a few breaths and figure out if this situation is really good for me. And I think that, I mean, I hate to say it, but I don't think that there's going to be a, a tremendously better response that I'm going to come up with while I'm walking on this earth because I've been at it for a really long time. Our impulse is our impulse, and our impulse is to say, it's my fault. I'm just not good
Yeah.
enough. And so that impulse, if you can start pulling back from it almost as soon as it's out of my mouth,
Yeah.
that's a win. That's a win. It's not the it's not like it's like what you were talking about, the complexity that you were talking about. It's not like the real win, which is to be like my brother John and think like nothing is ever his fault, and he doesn't have that impulse. So it's like you're so lucky. But you then but so we had the complicated thing, but then we just go, no, we choose not to. I'm not going to let this shame, like, I'm not going to bathe in it. I'm going to pull back from it, go in a different direction.
Like everything, it's a choice.
Yeah,
A funny question just occurred to me, if you don't mind. Are you a faithful person?
I am. You know,
Do you really think God would put someone on the earth who wasn't enough?
it's a very interesting it's a very interesting thing because it is such a peaceful time when I go and sit in some kind of space of worship. I can really quiet myself down, and I don't feel half bad when I'm sitting there. I don't know how if you are have this experience, but then Monday morning happens, and it's like I walk out of bed, I walk out of my bedroom, and the first thing that I've done is something that is going to cause world destruction and pain for everyone involved. So it's like second nature. And I don't know, for me, there's like a sort of like a cliche sort of origin story for it. I don't know what your origin story for it is, but with me, I would say that by the time I was like 5 or 6, my mom totally clocked me for a gay kid. And she let me know as soon as I was old enough to have words for it. Like, so let's say by the time I'm 12 or 13, she let me know that she knew, and she loved me. It was totally fine. Wouldn't it be the best thing in the world if nobody else could find out that you are this horrible thing? And if you know, she meant it with so much love. She thought she was doing the best she could do by me. And what it did was just the opposite. And it made me, so she was trying to be supportive and loving. And instead, she made me realize only I see that you're a secret piece of shit. And we'll keep it just between us. Okay.
Ugh.
And so I mean, and I bet lots of kids, straight kids, gay kids, all kinds of kids have that kind of thing where their parents or their older brothers or sisters are trying to do something and it really lands in the wrong way. But I feel like from that moment, thought of myself as, you know, if I ever let you see who I really was, you would run so fast because I don't deserve anything good to happen.
Because I'm steaming and odious and horrible.
Yeah.
Does everybody think that?
I think I've never had a really, really good friend who doesn't have a seed of it. There
Yeah.
seem to be tons of people walking around who don't have it at all. Half of the letters that I get are from people who are so convinced of their rightness.
Mm.
And but isn't that just a way of covering for the other thing? So I don't know. I think yes. I think it might be the human condition in a way. And
Yeah.
some people can keep walking. We keep walking, but we've got this really heavy weight on our backs.
Yeah.
Some people can walk a little more. I see some people walking a little more lightly, and it makes me really happy for them. I'm not jealous of them. I'm really happy for them. But I would love it when I get an afternoon when I'm walking lightly too. Don't you?
Y- Yeah, I have had a couple of fleeting moments, more like previews, like Cat Greenleaf, this is what it could be. This is what it could look like. This is what it could feel like if you would shut the fuck up and stop thinking that you control everything and that it is all your fault. And you'll see you are just a child of God like everybody else. You deserve to be here. You deserve to have had your experiences. I think we are both wasting our time convinced that we can control it all and that we did it all and we are bad. We're not as bad as any of the other idiots to our
I
left and
know.
to our right, right? We're probably a little better in some ways and a little worse in some ways. And that's it. And we're not that important.
I think that's exactly right. And to keep trying to hit that balance, I also know how hard that is. And
Yeah. It's so complex and it takes a long time. However, being sober for me has been incredibly helpful because I'm not compounding the problems I caused when I was drinking. So there's that. I was able to pause that so that I could get to some of the real work, which,
Right. It's a way of simplifying things. You can
yeah, man, and
see,
not waking up and wondering who I have to apologize and looking at my phone and like, what did I do? And it's
oh,
it's ugly. Yeah, it was pretty bad. Um, Bringing me to my next question, what's the most common situation people write to you about around addiction?
um, I think that it's a variation on my mom. It's the most common problem is my son, my daughter, my sister, my
Hmm.
brother is an addict, and I really, really want to support them, but I don't want anyone else to know. So there's such a slap because on the one hand, they're saying they love them, but then there's that slap of, and yet, how can I stop people from seeing how really vile and dirty they are? And it's so heartbreaking. So when the questions are about what can they do to help, I love that question, because there are a million ways you can help. And I think mostly you can help, as you said earlier, we can help by listening. We can help by listening to people tell us what they need to tell us. The, the best advice I ever give is not telling anyone to do anything, because that doesn't solve. I mean, the best advice I give is when I'm willing to sit and listen to somebody talk for as long as he or she needs to talk to till they get it out and they start to see themselves how they
Yes,
really are feeling, right? I mean,
yes, yes.
Dear Abby was a different time, and she was answering a different question. She was answering
Yeah,
questions that had yes or no answers. Now people's problems are more existential, and we're not, I mean, as much as I like to think there could be a way to help people by pointing them in a direction, I almost think the less pointing I do, the more helpful I am, because
yeah,
much better than I do what you need. And so does
yeah.
she, who's writing in, you
Right.
know you yourself. And if I listen, I can help you. And if I don't listen, if I want to tell people, people normally think of advice columns as you do this, not that. But
Yeah,
really, I think the best advice columns are where I let the person know that I've heard what she has to say. And
yeah,
she can think of it this way or she can think of it that way. But
yeah,
really, the most important thing is I've heard you.
yeah,
And that's because that's all we really want, isn't it? I
yeah,
mean, one of the things that's problematic with the social media world is that it seemed at the beginning like it was a way to let people could find it, use it as a way to, this is me.
yeah,
And but it's led to this weird kind of fragmentation, and everybody's talking and nobody's listening, and
yeah.
people are writing, and it ends up just making people feel lonely and worse.
Yeah,
And but now we've got a situation where the idea of really listening to someone else, I don't even know where it happens. But it's not on that stupid fucking Instagram. I know
nope,
it's not there. And I know
right,
it's not the people who are piling on and judging people and being cruel.
right.
It's such an interesting problem. We've made our life, we've made the problem of our lives even more difficult.
Yeah. All right. So listen, I need to let you go, but I want to ask you just a last question. You obviously have close friends, you have people in your life. Because of your job, do people expect more from you as a human? Do they expect you to be better than they are? Do they expect you to uphold some type of moral standard or a bar of wisdom that's unattainable?
No, not anyone I really love, and not anyone who really loves me. But at dinner
Mhm.
parties, it's hell
Yeah,
because people
I bet.
really expect you to be able to perform like
Yeah.
a circus animal. And sadly, my circus animal performing days are over. And
Yeah.
I don't know, like, they'll sit down and they start talking about this problem they're having with their sister-in-law. And it's like, I can't even follow this story. I'm
Right. Right.
no,
Ugh. Do you ever just like
no.
throw out some advice like you're right, she's wrong. Anyway, pass the mustard. That's what they want to hear, right? Everyone wants to hear they're right.
Everyone wants to hear that they're right. I
Well, Philip,
love
allow me to tell you,
this.
you are right.
You are too.
Yay, we're right. Awesome. Now that I'm meeting you in person, you are just as wonderful as your column. So thank you for shining your light here on Soberness, and I hope we can do it again.
I hope we can too. Thank you for talking to me, making me remember those Al-Anon rooms. I love you
It's
for
really,
that.
there is value for you wherever you want to be, right? If you make it valuable.
Thank
Goodbye.
you.
All right.
Bye.
That does it for another episode of Soberness. Thank you so much for tuning in. Listen, we love making this show for you, but now we need you to do something for us, please. See that subscribe button? Hit it. So hit it. Just hit the subscribe button. But I'll wait. I'll wait. You hit it? Yeah, good. Now go around your house, get your mother, your dad, your cousin, the babysitter. I want everybody. We just need you to subscribe. We're so grateful. Thank you so much.